Here we are. Hello, Amber.
Hello, Tessa.
Today we have Amber Prothero on the podcast, and I'm just beyond excited.
Yeah,
Um,
thank you.
yeah, it's Amber's first podcast, so give her like in your mind's eye an applause upon hearing this.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. First podcast with the lovely Tessa. Thank you so
And I'm
much for
sure,
inviting me.
yeah, you're so welcome, and I'm sure the first of many more to come. I mean, I just, as I just shared with you, but I just had a little snippet saying how I kind of know you and how I met you through Abby. And ever since I kind of learned about you, I've been curious about you and just seeing how you were doing your, was it at one point balcony sessions in Paris?
Yes.
What was
Yeah, I forgot about the balcony sessions. Yeah, that was a little creative project I started when I was living in Paris. But yeah, that was a good 3 years ago now, I think, which is crazy. That's that long ago.
Yeah,
But
what
yeah.
did you do again? Because it was on a balcony where you lived, or
Yeah, exactly. So even though I am a musician, I studied languages at university. So I studied French, Spanish, and Italian. And as part of that kind of process at university, you have to go and move away. Have to. It was like the best part of the whole experience. You have to go and move away and live in, the three places of like I lived in France, Spain, and Italy. And in the 4 months that I lived in Italy, I was very fortunate to live in this stunning, apartment, and it had a beautiful balcony. And I wanted to try and stay, very active musically, because at the beginning I didn't know of any, places to perform or anything. So I was like, what better place than my balcony? And that's how it started. So I was like playing to myself, but recording all these things. And I decided to call it the balcony sessions because, I was doing covers and original songs and all that kind of thing. And
Mhm.
that's how it was born.
Yeah, and so did you say it started in Italy then?
So no, it started in Paris. So my
Oh,
first stint of like my year abroad started in France, in Paris. I think it was September to December 2017
mm,
that I came home, and I had a bit of time at home for Christmas. And then I moved to Italy for the next part, and I studied in Italy in Bologna.
mm.
And I kind of did a mini series there. I think I was trying to come up with a name that was as creative and fun as the balcony sessions, but I kind of didn't come up with anything that I was happy with. So I just did it on the couch in my apartment.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, so that's how it all came about.
I love that. That's awesome. And I'm just so excited to dive in with, well, as you kind of know, and people know by now, I suppose there are not like a set frame of questions. I just have a couple of curiosities. But to start off, we can either hear about your sort of who you are, or
Mhm.
I always, as you know, like to pull my cards and just see what they say. But what would you like to
Yeah.
do first?
Let's start with the check-in for sure. Let's do that.
Okay.
I'm
Yeah.
excited about my cards. I've heard a lot about
Yes.
the
Well, a funny thing, this is one thing I don't know if you know or if Abby ever told you. But when we worked on this event together, and that was actually the first time we were using these type of cards underneath yoga mats, and
Okay.
people would have like this card and then it was theirs.
Hmm.
And so we were working on performance magic at the time,
Yeah.
and then I just thought, okay, I'll just pull one for fun myself. And
Yeah.
then this card came up with this blue butterfly, and we were both, and Abby was looking
That's
at me
the
like,
that's the
oh
brand
my
identity. That's
God.
where it came from. Yeah. I didn't know that story actually, but obviously like I know Abby and you did a lot of work together,
Mm.
um, for the kind of brand identity of performance magic, and I didn't know that that's how the butterfly came about. So there
Well,
you go.
yeah, she came round to sort of remind us, like, yes, you're on the right path.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, amazing.
Okay, so you say stop then. I have these little cards. Just say stop and then I'll pull one.
Stop.
Okay. Do you want one more?
Yeah, go for it. Do
Okay,
it.
good. I always love abundance. La 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 la
Stop.
la. Okay. One more?
Yeah, why not? Third time lucky.
I love three times too.
Okay, good. Stop.
Okay, great. Oh, that one. Okay, the first one I see is courage. Yeah, you have lots of courage. Oh, the second one I see is grace. You are absolutely an epiphany of grace. And then we have forgiveness. That's
Interesting.
nice.
Okay.
And then there is a stream of love supporting my dreams. Hmm.
I feel like
That is sweet.
that's quite apt, I feel. We'll obviously come to talk about it at the end, but I feel like, yeah, I'm happy with those actually.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, so okay, and we'll check in afterwards too. But they are here to sort of accompany us as little friends along the way. But share with everyone. I kind of know Amber, but I mean, maybe I don't even know parts of you. So
Amazing.
tell me, who are you?
Okay, so my name's Amber Prothero. I'm a 23-year-old musician and songwriter. I am currently living in the northwest of the UK. I'm living with my parents because lockdown and everything that's been going on. And yeah, I mentioned briefly before that I studied languages at university. So I did that for 4 years. And then that had always been my kind of plan B. And I had always wanted to pursue music. And that is what I have been fortunate enough to do for the last 12 months. So yeah, I have been obviously, well, prior to kind of January time when COVID came about, I was gigging full time, um, kind of in the northwest, you know, where my parents are based, and where I grew up. And then when everything happened in like February, March time, we were all locked up. I kind of recreated my home studio, and home studio, it's in my bedroom. That's where I am now. That's my creative space. And it's from this kind of place that I've been writing and recording and kind of creating a big catalogue of music over the last 6 to 8 months. So yeah, music is my passion and it's what I wanna do with my life. But that's me.
What you are doing, right?
And what I'm doing. Yeah, I mean it's not just what I'm doing. I it might sound a bit cliche, but like it's who I am. Like there's nothing, you know, when you picture what you want to be doing with your life, I
Mm-hmm.
can't picture anything else,
Exactly.
which is kind of scary as well because you know when you've got your mind set on one thing,
Mm-hmm.
you perhaps put a lot of pressure on that. But I think that can be seen as a positive thing as well.
What is making it scary? What is making it scary then?
I think like I've heard you talk about this before, but I think the fact that the creative industry and particularly the music industry is a very daunting industry in itself.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think like as someone who has kind of experienced it firsthand, more so over the last 6 to 8 months because of the writing that I've been doing and the collaborating with other people in the industry,
Mm-hmm.
I think like it is just obviously an industry that kind of breeds, insecurity and fear because of the competition that's out there. It's hard not to feel scared about the fact that that's the one thing I want to do because it's not like, and I'm not saying that other facets of life or other industries are easy by any means, but I just know firsthand that music industry is very, very tough to be in and to be successful in as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think that's the scary part is, knowing what the industry's like and knowing that, and regardless of that, I still want to go into it and dive headfirst.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because you have that feeling there is nothing else. This
Yeah,
is it.
yeah, literally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think too, like, well, as far as I know you and know kind of your family, but you're such a love being. So going into that, yeah, fear based, well, then again, you are a true angel for whoever comes across your path. You know what I mean? But it is harder because it's just a different, almost like a radio station. You are in a different vibration, and you might are learning. You are learning how to navigate on the other radio station too. But
Yeah. You've hit
yeah.
the nail on the head there, I think. Like the fact that I am by nature a very loving person. I am like, and to my own detriment, probably, a person that likes everyone to get on. I like everyone to be nice to each other. I don't really like conflict. Like if someone, wants, to have an argument with me, I'm very well prepared. Like I'm able to have arguments, but it doesn't leave me feeling happy and it doesn't leave me with a nice feeling.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you've hit the nail on the head there, which is like being that kind of person. It's hard going into that industry and not feeling like, oh my god, I'm going to get like constantly walked all over and
Mm-hmm.
taken advantage of. And I think the fact that I'm aware of that probably makes it easier, because
Mhm.
every time I go into something, whether it's a contract or a new relationship with someone in a work environment for a new project, I'm always conscious of like, right, is that how this should be playing out? Like, am I doing the right thing?
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
know, are they reacting in the right way? Are we, it's just being aware of that and checking in with that before you then kind of
Yeah.
dive headfirst into that kind of situation with someone.
And and a little while ago, it came up too when I was working with people, like being sweet, being kind doesn't mean you are being walked over.
Yeah, I think
Often
I
that
saw
is,
that actually. Yeah.
yeah, often it's like synonym to each other, as in, oh,
Yeah.
you're so sweet, like, but no, you can still be sweet and
Mhm.
have your boundaries, know
Yeah.
what is important for you. So I think you are very switched on in that sense, which is only a blessing, but
Yeah.
it doesn't take away that it's not challenging.
Of course, exactly. And it's all a learning curve. Like over the last, as I say, I refer to it as the kind of last 6 to 8 months, because that's the period in which we've all been kind of launched into this new period of like
Mm,
awareness and like, dealing with situations differently because of what's going on around us. And I
mhm,
think it's only in these last 6 to 8 months that I have kind of learned so many mini and big lessons as well, about not just about myself, but about the industry and about working relationships. And you know I refer to it a lot as like playing the game in the industry, because it's like you might not like someone, but they
mhm,
might know someone who could be very kind of influential in your
mhm,
journey. So you have
mhm.
to kind of just put those feelings aside and
Take
deal with
time.
it. And
Yes.
deal with it. When I was younger, I think I was quite a bossy kid, and very like strong-willed is like what my parents like to say.
Mhm,
And I used to speak my mind too much, and I used to say like whatever popped into my head, and I think that got me into a lot of trouble in school,
mm,
because I would like think something and I'd say it because I was strong and I was confident, and I was like, well, if I'm saying it, you know and obviously not everyone is kind of as confident as that, and it got me into trouble. And my mum used to say, Amber, think it in your head, just think it in your head. And I've learned how to do that finally. All these years later, I've mastered that.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the one thing I know I'm good at now. Just think it in your head. It might take a while. Like it might take some breaths.
I get you though. I wonder because I know you are also with quite a lot of other cultures, integrated, that I perceive that to be quite a British thing. If you do speak your mind,
Mm,
it's not always, like being a Dutch person,
yeah.
and seeing it from a Dutch perspective and a British perspective, there's definitely a difference there for
Did
sure.
you, out, just from what you said, do you think Dutch people speak their minds more than British people, or the other way around?
Oh
Dutch
no.
people speak their minds more.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so that's what I would agree. I would tend to agree. Like I have some Dutch friends, and they're always very open, and I
Mm,
think that's a very good thing.
mm,
And British people can tend, and obviously try not to generalize here, but can tend
yeah.
to be a bit more kind of like, oh, I'm thinking this, but I'm not going to say it because I don't want to cause any confrontation. And I feel like maybe I was once upon a time I was Dutch, and
Who knows?
maybe in another life, who knows?
I like to think about those things, but who knows? And
Yeah,
one more thing, and then I want to go into the performance magic question, as in what that means to you. But
of course.
play the game. Somebody once, yeah, that's what you said, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
somebody once told me, like, play the game in order to change the game.
very good. I like that.
Because I always have like these thoughts, like, oh, it can be this way, this way, this way. But then again, it's true. You need to play the game in order to change it, because it's so easy to be from the outside looking in, like thinking, oh yeah, this can be different, this can be different. But then when you are actually in the arena,
Yeah.
then we can play, then we can see what is actually going on.
100%. I like that. I'm gonna try and write that down and remember that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's good. I feel like that's very, very accurate.
And also in line with what you were. Okay. So, yeah, performance magic, all about it, but that magical moment in time for me, it's the more I know about it, the more it's literally everywhere.
Uh-huh.
But I'm so curious, how have you experienced that
Mhm.
type of moment?
Yeah.
Can you share it with us?
Yeah, of course. I mean, obviously, I know I've heard you describe like performance magic as that kind of moment in time where you have the connection between the audience and the performer.
Mhm.
And I think, bearing in mind I've been gigging since I was about 15, so that's for about 8 years. I don't think towards the beginning of my musical career, let's say, I was aware of performance magic. And I think that is mostly, sorry, aware of the feeling that performance magic represents,
Mhm.
because I don't think I was that confident at the beginning, which is understandable as like a 15-year-old, musician that's just kind of starting out.
Mhm.
You talk a lot about that engagement between audience, and kind of when you feel confident, they can sense that.
Mhm.
So I
Mhm.
think like, yeah, and then they react accordingly, which is very often, if they can tell you're confident and really into it, then they're going to have a positive reaction. Whereas if you're not so confident and you're kind of hiding behind the microphone and not really looking up and wanting to make eye contact, then it's obviously a lot harder to have that moment.
Mhm.
Um, but I think, like, one moment, I know you said like, is there a moment in time where you have experienced it? I would say the closest I've ever had to what I would describe as performance magic was around this time last year. I had a Sofa Sounds session, which is like, Sofa is a kind of organization which puts on live shows for musicians, upcoming musicians, all over the world. So they have them in the UK, but they also have them, in France, Spain, Germany, all over the place, Holland. And I had one in Paris this time last year. So I took the Eurostar to Paris, and I had this show, and it was a showcase. So it was all original music, and the venue was amazing. It was like a tiny photography studio, and it was not. It was an acoustic gig, so nothing was mics. It was like in a tiny room. People were like sat cross-legged on the floor. Obviously, it was before like COVID, so everyone was like hunched up close to each other, like like when
Mhm.
you're sat at school and you always used to like sit up cross-legged. It kind of felt like that,
Mhm.
and you're on a level, because I wasn't on stage. I was just like in the room with them because it was a tiny show. So it was an amazing show, because obviously it wasn't mic'd, so you could hear, like, literally the room was silent, and you could hear like people breathing. It was that quiet, obviously. And there was a moment where in my set I played Falling by Alicia Keys.
Mhm.
I don't know if you're like familiar with the song. It's obviously
Mhm.
one of her best known songs, and that was the only cover I did. But like the whole room seemed to know this song, because obviously it's quite famous.
Mhm.
And there was a moment in there where like I came to the first chorus, and like obviously I could see everyone's faces because it was a tiny room, but people started harmonizing the song with me. So these people were obviously very musical people. And I was like singing the song, and obviously like luckily I'm used to singing with other people. Otherwise that probably would have really put me off. Like other people singing harmony to the chorus. And there was just a moment where I was like, oh my God, like I'm in the middle of Paris. I don't know any of these people, and yet this music, this song that is so well known, is connected all of us, and everyone's singing the words, and some people are even harmonizing the chorus. And it was just like, I just like undescribable how amazing it was, particularly bearing in mind like a lot of the shows I've been doing prior to that shows were like gigs in restaurants and gigs in hotels, where,
Mhm.
I mean, you've performed in tons of different,
Mhm.
spaces.
Mhm.
You've performed
Mhm.
all over the place, and you've also, I'm sure you've done your kind of time in the odd restaurant or hotel, and you know what it's like when you're in a place and everyone just could not be more bothered. Like they're just like, great, not listening, which is fine, because in
Mhm.
that environment you don't necessarily have to listen. But the contrast between that and then this moment in Paris, it was just like it was from here to here.
Yeah. And I can just I always love that when people tell from their memory, because you still see it, and therefore we can see it too with
Yeah,
you.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
cool.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Wow, what a and I just yeah, so thank you for sharing that. That's beautiful. I can only imagine that, hopefully at least that you travel quite often back to that moment, reminiscing and hoping for something similar, but that is amazing.
Yeah, no, it was amazing. And I talk, like, I like to believe a lot in, not like to believe, sorry, I believe a lot in kind of things happening for a reason. and moments happening for a reason, and the way they change you as a person, and also like the people you meet along the way.
Mhm.
So like a really nice story that's kind of links to that show is when I was playing that show, obviously there was say 25 people in the audience, and they have all your socials on the wall behind you so that people can find you and comment and message you if they feel like, you know, if they felt connected to you and wanted to say well done or
Mhm.
whatever the circumstances were. And there was a friend of mine who is now a friend, and someone I collaborate with and write with, who was in the audience, someone who I'd never met. Um, and he is a musician, but obviously at the time he was just an audience member. But it's funny how you connect with people. I could tell he was really enjoying not just my performance, but you know, there was a cellist there and another guy on the guitar who was incredibly talented. And we, you know, now 12 months later, we met through Sofa, and now we're working on my album together.
Mhm. Mhm.
And it's like, if I hadn't done that show, I wouldn't have met him, and we wouldn't be working on this project that like I'm so excited about. I would be in a very different, you know, place and
Yeah.
direction in so many different ways. So like that's another thing, that not just performance magic, but like the magic of
Mm.
people's paths crossing, you know?
Totally. Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm always fascinated by that because I mean, if we look at the entire globe, there are so many people there.
Yeah.
And why are some people linked up? Why do people
Yes.
meet? But I do believe I have a curiosity too within the acting world. Some really big acting teachers
Yeah.
all came out of the same acting group, and then they all went out to become like these massive acting coaches, and
Yeah.
I'm fascinated by that. I once read a
Yeah.
book about it. It's called The Talent Code, and he
Okay.
actually did some research on how in Brazil the footballers are just so good, and how
Yeah.
there, you know,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
cool how people do, yeah, finding your tribe, right?
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
And I think that's another thing in the creative industry. And I hear a lot when I watch a lot, I watch a lot of interviews of like my favorite artists, so like Billie Eilish and Dua Lipa and all of these people that have just blown up.
Mm,
And they all talk about having an amazing team from day one. And I
mhm,
think that if you are to be successful, you need people that are lifting you up,
mhm,
not people that are trying to keep you where you are because they don't want you to grow and change and improve, you know?
totally.
And I think, I don't necessarily think that I've found every member of my team, but like I think I'm slowly starting to build a team, which is
Mm,
exciting. You know, people that believe in the project and believe in me as an artist and that want to help because of nothing other than like wanting, rather than it being personal gain for them, or, you know,
mhm, mhm.
it's a nice feeling. And I hadn't really experienced that properly, I don't think, until this year.
Yeah. Yeah, and there is so much in there as in allowing yourself to meet those people, and also for yourself really deciding
Yeah.
or committing like this is what I'm doing. And I want to sort of veer into the question of, do you live the story you want to tell? But
Yeah.
then at the same time, I want to know, like I just feel so much is bubbling, like I want to know what's going on in your life. So maybe you can merge the two together or
Of
something.
course, 100%. So I think currently I would say I am living the story I want to tell, because you know, circumstances are allowing me to do that. So everyone's in lockdown here in the UK. So, you know, what else is there to do other than carry on creating and being in this space? So I think at the moment I'm living the story I want to tell. I'm working with lots of different artists. So I mentioned this guy that I met through the Sofa. So we're currently like writing my album, and we're about, I think, probably 5 songs in, and we've only been working on it for the last kind of couple of months. Um, and I'm not sure, like I don't want to put a ceiling on the number of songs in the album, because I just want to kind of see how it progresses. And you know, I might create 15 songs and only decide to use the best 10. I don't know. I want to kind of just keep that very open. um so the album is something very important to me that I'm working on. For the future, there is an EP that I'm releasing next February, which is an older project, but again something that I'm still very very proud of. But even since writing all that music and then obviously releasing it, you have to release it and leave time in between releases to kind of keep people wanting more. I
Mhm.
still feel like even since I've written and recorded that EP, that my music, my sound, my what who I am as an artist, and the genre and the sound that I'm going for, that has come on leaps and bounds since recording the EP. But it's still obviously a project I'm excited about. So that's coming out next year. And what else? I think just kind of trying to collaborate with as many people as possible, because you never know what's going to lead to what.
Mhm.
And I think that's what's amazing about like this podcast and like the curious conversations, is that like I'll watch something that you posted with another friend that you've invited on the podcast, and then I'll go and do some research about them and find like a connection, and you never know what's going to come from it. So I think like I'm at the moment just trying to be as open as possible, and if someone says, oh, do you want to collaborate, and I feel like it's something that I would gel well with, then I go, yeah, why not? I'll make the time for it. I've got a million other things to do, but why not give me another thing to do? It's like I haven't got enough to do, so just pile it on there and we'll add it on. But yeah.
Yes.
So I think I currently am living the story I wanted to tell. Whether I'm living that story in 6 months' time, who knows? But we'll see.
Well, that's maybe another story then, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
that's so awesome. And in last curious conversation, we also tipped on following the breadcrumbs. This is something I say myself too, but that's very much coming up now too, as in,
100%, yeah.
like following, as in somebody pops up and if it feels right, yes. And just before we jumped on this call, I briefly, as I shared, said a little something about you, and what came up then was very much about when I would look from the out. Well, I kind of, I suppose, get kind of this space you are in, but when people look from the outside in, they will quite easily say, oh my god, and are you okay, and can you do all of this, and oof, so much, and determination, etc., etc.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you are actually in that space,
Mm-hmm.
well, you can go on forever, right?
Literally. That is literally my motto, because I think I always used to be a person that was like, oh no, like I need rest and I need time, and I was always very like, I wouldn't say anxious about it, but I was always very particular about what I worked on, and will I have enough time to do this, and I don't want to let this person down. And then I was just like, do you know what? I think, and it's probably COVID, because I feel like a lot of creatives have become, come in this space, like you with your podcast, for example.
Mm,
You're trying something that maybe
mm,
12 months ago you might have gone, oh god, no, I don't know if I'll have the time, and I don't know if
mm,
that's something I want to do.
yeah.
And yet now I'm really trying to. I mean, have you ever seen the film Yes Man?
Oh yes.
Okay, so like I wouldn't say like it's one of my favorite films,
Ah,
but
I love it
it's like
too.
one of the funniest films, and also just very like relevant, because I try and take from that, obviously not to the extreme that the film like depicts the story, but it's like if you say yes, something amazing might come of it.
Mm,
And you know if you let a couple of people down along the way, obviously I never aim to let people down, but like sometimes projects just don't work out. Sometimes you aim to go and write an amazing song, and it's a flop, or it doesn't work. And other times you think, I'm not really sure how this is going to go, and you're a bit kind of tentative and not really sure, and then you'll do it and you're like, well, thank god I did that, because look where we are now.
exactly.
Which is
Yeah.
great. So yeah, so Yes Man is like such a good
I love that one too. And I just love Jim Carrey generally, but I just think it's such a great film. Yeah.
Yeah, Jim Carrey, he's just absolute genius. Yeah, absolutely love
Mhm.
him.
So I love this. Anyway, going on like with guts, like going or guts, what does that mean to you? I'm always curious because people always have a different connotation, and in the sense of, yeah, kind of what my song is about, but having guts to, what
Yeah.
does that mean to you, and how does that manifest in your world?
Yeah. Well, I think like on a more surface level, guts to me, I think like anyone that's a performer, or someone who puts themselves out there, an actor, I think like you and I and anyone else in that creative industry, you have to have guts to begin with to get up on a stage and perform. So like on a kind of more surface level, something that's perhaps a bit more kind of obvious, I would say, to me, having guts is like being able to go up and do that, and and do it well, you
Mhm.
know. So I think like you'll understand that, and a lot of performers and actors and people will understand that. And I think on maybe a more kind of on a deeper level, perhaps having guts, like for me, I need to have guts to carry on doing what I'm doing. Like we had this conversation at the beginning of the podcast, which is going into this industry and going in this direction, knowing that it might not work out, or I might not get where I want to go, or there might be a lot of problems along the way just because of the way the industry is. You kind of have to have guts knowing all that, because
Mhm.
I've experienced like not tons of it so far, but like moments in time where I've been like, oh my god, this industry is like not great, or and I think for me it's like I every day waking up and being like, right, carrying on with this project because I love it, and it's
Mhm.
what I want to do, but at the same time like I don't know where it's going to end up, and that's scary. And you've got to just kind of have you've got to have belief in yourself to be able to carry on doing that.
Mhm.
You've got to
Mhm.
really 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 believe in your project and what you're trying to achieve to kind of make it happen, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah, and just hearing all your words, like it just feels like I'm hearing myself in a way, like it's so resonant. And
Mm,
yeah, because in the end, there is nobody. You can still be supported by that lovely, loving team.
yeah, 100%.
But still, you need to do it. Like
Yeah.
you need to step on this. They cannot sing your song. Like it's you. And what actually came to my mind just before, and it was kind of veering off, but now it came back. So I do want to say
Mhm.
it. It's like
Go for
I
it.
think it's like this beautiful quote by Vincent van Gogh, but it's basically coming down to the fact of when you go down a paved road, you might not see certain flowers when you would go actually through the wood.
Yeah.
Or that's how I take it. I'm sure
Yeah,
the
yeah.
quote goes differently,
I'm
but
sure it can be interpreted in lots of different ways, but I like that interpretation a lot.
oh, thank you. It's kind of like similar with what you were saying, as in earlier with this
Yeah,
industry, or in the end, for some reason, and I don't know, maybe you feel that too, but in my case, like for some reason, I find myself doing this. I'm excited about it.
yeah.
Nobody has told me to do this.
No,
There are tons of other jobs I could do, but
yeah,
I would absolutely be bored to death and fall asleep. And I don't want to do that.
probably. You'd probably be miserable, you know?
Absolutely miserable.
Yeah. So like, yeah, it's hard. And like, I think this period has almost highlighted that even more, that like in the creative industry, we're not necessarily supported that much.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yet I find that crazy because I've seen so many things all over, kind of from friends but also on social media, which is like you know people that lawyers or scientists or like doctors, even they listen to music and need that
Yes.
as an escape. And I think like another friend of my mum's I was talking to a few months ago, she was like, are you still singing and doing music? And I was like, yeah. And she said, well, that's good. Creating and art is important, because when all the robots take over, that's the one thing they're not going to be able to recreate is is feeling.
It is feeling.
And I was like, oh, I like that. It makes me feel like I'm doing something meaningful.
It's true. And it requires people exactly like them, but to understand, because I mean, the other day I found myself in a conversation and it got very passionate about the fact that basically nowadays the art is basically McDonald's. You can find it anywhere. And the other day we were at our neighbors and he has this long play or LP thing, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so when you take out the ugh, I don't know the English words for this actually, but like the record,
Yeah,
like
the vinyl. The
yeah,
vinyl for me,
vinyl,
yeah. Yeah.
exactly. When you take out the vinyl,
Mhm.
you already have such appreciation for the music rather than Spotify. Boom, it's gone.
No,
It's such a
yeah,
different
it
experience.
is. And I think like that's something I do struggle with, I have to say, like being in the kind of era we're in, where everything, and obviously it's a positive thing as well as a negative thing, but it's like everything's so instant,
Hmm.
which is very great, because very great. It's great because it can be accessible.
Mhm,
People
mhm.
from all over the world, you can listen to your music, they can watch your podcast, they can
Yeah.
get on YouTube and search your songs.
Mhm.
but I also feel like with that brings a bit of kind of like, well, it's disposable as well, because it's
Mhm.
like it comes, it comes and goes so quickly. Whereas, like you talk about a vinyl, like my boyfriend, he collects, he's got like 400 and something vinyls or something. He collects vinyls, and we might not listen to the vinyls all the time, but it's kind of having them there, and like you say, like you take it out and there's this kind of the whole feeling that goes with like a physical copy of a
Mm.
CD or a vinyl that
Mm.
like we've almost lost. you know, our kids, if we ever have kids growing up, will probably be like, "What's a vinyl?" or "What's a CD?" And we'd be like, "Well, nowadays there was video and
Well,
CD."
my babies will know about a vinyl. I want to have one of those old gramophones, like they look so
Yeah, yeah,
gorgeous.
no, I mean, so do I, but I think, yeah, technology, that's like a whole other,
I,
rabbit hole that we can get
I
ourselves down.
no, no, we're staying on track.
Yeah.
Going down. No. So yeah, coming back to this guts thing, like, is there one moment where you really sort of faced like that guts fear and you went through it and what came out of it on the other end? Is there maybe one moment that you want to share?
Well, I think I've heard you talk a lot, Tessa, about how your how practices in your musical and creative atmosphere, sphere,
Mm.
whatever you call it, kind
Mm.
of transgress into your kind of normal life.
Mm.
And like, I think the example that I would give isn't creative actually, but
Mhm.
it's something that I learned through perhaps kind of, putting myself out there with, on a stage or playing original songs. Like, one of the hardest things I've ever had to do was when I was living in Paris and I was working for Universal Music. And obviously it was in France, so everyone spoke French, which at the time I thought my French was good. And I think I very quickly realized after the first day that like I had a lot of learning to do, like with my French. Which obviously by the end I felt very, very confident. But guts fear, like I never forget like walking to the office that morning, like my very first morning in a whole new city that like I've been in for 4 days, and being like, what am I doing? Like, I know this is compulsory for university, but like, what am I doing?
Mhm.
It was scary. I was
Mm.
scared, and like I had to just kind of, you just have to take a deep breath and get on with
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
because it's like either you go and do it, or like you head home and you haven't got a job anymore. Do you
Mhm.
know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I think, and that's quite a cutthroat like way of thinking about it. Like, some people, can't just get on with it because they physically like it's too much. But like in that moment in time, I had a choice, which was like either I go home and I've lost my placement, or I take a deep breath, try and like take each kind of moment as it comes. Because it's like all those things about, what if they ask me this and I don't understand, or what if they think I'm stupid, or what if
Mhm.
they think I'm not, I don't deserve to have a placement for 4 months there. It's all that, and you just need to like shove that at the back of your brain and like
Yeah.
focus on the
Let's
now.
go. Yes, exactly. And
Yeah.
then what happened after that first day going into how
Well,
did this
it's not even like, I wouldn't say like it's a positive, because like basically I came back from that first day and I was so overwhelmed, and I went home and I just burst into tears.
Of course.
And I just was like, oh my God, like I knew it was going to be difficult, and it wasn't even that anyone was nasty. No one was nasty. Everyone was friendly enough.
Mhm.
You know, they obviously didn't know me, and a few couple of months in, and I had loads of friends, and we all used to go out and hang out and everything. But I think it was my first placement of my year abroad, so I hadn't quite grasped the fact that speaking in a different language for the whole day, and then in a business sense as well. I
Mm.
mean, because you're
Hiring.
English, exactly. It's it's
Yeah.
it's it's when it's not your first language, it's so tiring. So like the first day I came home, cried, had a good sleep, and then the second day was a lot better. It wasn't easy, but it was a lot better, and the kind of guts fear had gone, or it had died down. I would say
Mhm.
it wasn't gone. It died down. So yeah, that's a good example, I think.
Yeah, that's a very good example. And so it's such a you're such a brave one. I love it. So no, I do think you are. I
I
mean,
mean,
you
yeah,
have
I don't
empathy.
disagree, but when I like, and it's a nice thing, I guess, as well, because you look back at these experiences and you go, gosh, like, thank goodness I did that, because
Mm.
it's so easy to stay in your comfort zone, and I've done that in stages of my life, and you kind of have this like guilty feeling like you're doing this because it's easy, you shouldn't
Mm,
be. And then when you throw yourself in the deep end and you actually like, thank God,
yes, well done. Yeah,
and me.
uh-huh.
But yeah, no, it's I mean, yeah, it's all life experience, and I'm obviously grateful, but there are moments where you just think, well, what am I doing? What am I doing with my life?
Let's go, see where it goes.
Flight home already? Should we head home?
No, no, no. Just like,
Yeah.
so yeah, so coming back to live the story you want to tell. What is the story you want to tell? What are your, well, I don't want, I once learned from somebody on the ship, I would always ask, like, oh, what are your dreams to everyone? And
Mhm.
then this one guy once said, it's actually not really nice to ask. I was like, oh. And because for him,
Really?
it was quite a
Yeah,
private
that's quite
thing. I
a
was
nice
like,
question.
hey,
I said I thought that would have been like quite a nice, like I
yeah. But for him, it was quite a private thing, which I also appreciated and respected. So ever since, I am more considerate
conscious. Yeah,
about
yeah. Yeah.
asking.
I mean, to me, like I feel like as a person that is in a creative industry, like what are your aspirations and dreams? That's like the main question, isn't it? It's like where do you see yourself
You're
in 10.
constantly.
Yeah, that's what you get up in the morning and you're like, this is what I want to this is what I'm doing
That
on
is our,
stage.
I suppose it's almost like our fuel, because I mean, we need to have that sort of driving sense, right?
Otherwise you lose all focus of like what you're doing it for.
Right.
But I think, yeah, like with the dream, there's the kind of fancy version and then there's the realistic version, because I am like a bit of a realist slash pessimist, so like I have two versions of the dream. So like the
I,
dream.
where shall we start? Listen, I'm a realist too, although people do absolutely believe I'm, well, I am a dreamer, of course. I mean, not everyone.
People don't think you're a realist, do they, Tessa? They're
I
like,
am with a magical twist.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But let's go. I want to hear the fancy version. My dad always taught me just think big first, then you can dial it
Okay,
down. So
okay, that I like that. Cool. So the big version is like, I wouldn't necessarily say being as big as someone like Billie Eilish, but breaking into the industry with like a bam, in the sense like, but being authentic to myself. So like the album that I'm working on, I genuinely feel like it is the kind of genre of it. It's like a mixture of so many different vibes. It's kind of pop, soul, disco, funk. It's like so many things that I think could do really well. So I think like the dream is being able to tour and earn enough money to have a nice lifestyle, because like I'm not saying I want to earn millions and millions and millions of pounds, but like I want to be able to have a nice life. Like, I've got like tons of music gear I'm going to be buying, like that's what I invest a lot of my money in. I love traveling. Like, I want to be able to support myself. So like the big dream is like, you know, walking down the street and someone being like, "Oh my God, I love your song something." And I'll be like, "Thanks."
yes.
I wrote it myself, like something like that. Like not necessarily fame, but like being recognized for doing something that I love. That's
Yeah.
like the dream, being
Mm.
recognized. And not necessarily by people, it could be someone in the industry that's like, "Oh my God, Amber Prothero, I heard
Mm.
your song that you co-wrote with so and so. Wow, that was
Mhm.
that was great." So I think that is the kind of dream. And then the realistic dream is the kind of, if I can say in 10 years' time that I'm still in a creative industry and doing something that I love, writing, not necessarily singing, although singing is obviously kind of goes hand in hand with writing, and earning a good living, then I'll say I'll be happy. If I'm doing this in 10 years' time and still enjoying it and earning money, because that's something that I'm not doing at the moment, I'm not quite managing to get the two to go together.
Mhm.
Um, but I'm working on it, right? It's a work in progress. So I think, yeah, 10 years time, if I can be doing this and be earning some money from it, then I'd be very
Mhm.
happy and fulfilled.
I think everything is possible. As in, I don't say this blasé into the air, but I mean, like what you say is very, yeah. And I often talk also about nourishing the eye of the heart, because often you already see things, or you yourself, and other people around you don't, and then things start to move. Like, you are doing so much right now, and I saw you were picked up by some radio stations and stuff, right? Like, it's really exciting. And I mean, I do understand. I suppose it's different because in the normal world, quote unquote normal world, we do some work and you get money for it, but in our sense it's almost the other way round.
100%. Like, achievement is not, I mean, particularly in this industry, you know as well as I do, like you just said, achievement and success isn't always measured by, by money and how much
Hmm.
you're making. Because, like, yeah, the fact, like, if I'd thought 12 months ago, even to when I did the sofa and I had this amazing moment in the,
Right.
in the show,
Hmm.
if someone had said to me, right, this time next year, you're going to have released 6 songs, written over 35 songs, have an album in the making, and have been played 8 times on BBC Introducing, I would have gone, shut your mouth.
Exactly.
And that's not me bigging it up, because even then, to me, that doesn't sound, it's impressive for the old me, but it's still not enough.
No,
Like,
yeah.
there'll be people listening to this, or, whoever tunes in, and be going, well, that's not great. But to me, it's great because I know how the journey's happened,
Absolutely.
you know?
Absolutely. And that is why I'm so passionate about having these conversations, because I mean, there are plenty of stories of people who are established.
Yeah.
I, and I always wonder, but how? How did he got there? Like,
Yeah.
how did
Yeah. How did they get that? Yeah.
I'm curious about these conversations because they are real,
Yeah.
as in, and I'm just so excited for you. I'm
Thank
so
you.
excited for you. And I'm
Yeah. It's
curious.
cool. And I think, like, I mean, my family very well. And I think, like, my parents and my sister, and, like, even my boyfriend, he's so supportive, and all my family are very supportive. And obviously they kind of ride this emotional, and have done for the last however long I've been really pushing it. So say 2 years, they've been riding the emotional roller coaster with me, which is like, obviously what I'm putting out on social media is all the positive things that have been happening.
Mm,
And they're the ones, and my friends are the ones that know about all the things that didn't happen, and all
mhm,
the things that I was disappointed about.
mhm,
But I think, like you said originally, if you've got a support bubble,
mhm,
you know that really believes in what you're wanting to achieve, and then you obviously have to believe in yourself, because, like you said, no one's going to write the songs for you, no one's
mhm,
going to push you to get up at 8 and work 12-hour shift in the studio to finish the projects you're doing. Like, no one's going to do that for you. But I think, like, I keep going back to this artist because I just think she's incredible, Billie Eilish. I think one of the reasons she's so successful is because she has that kind of support bubble. She has her parents who have always supported her aspirations, and then her brother, who is her co-writer, guitarist, pianist, best friend.
mhm,
And they're around her, pushing her and believing in her, as well as obviously her believing in herself. And I think that helps. And I'm not saying that that's the case for every artist that's ever been successful.
mhm,
But I think the team, whether that's family or
mhm,
management or friends or boyfriend or partner or whatever, that's what, like, at the end of the day, if you don't have that support, it's very hard to push yourself there all alone,
mhm,
you know?
mhm. Yeah, and feeling that sense of belonging and feeling that sense of value
Yeah.
already,
Yeah.
and a sense of enoughness to move through. Because I mean, yeah, yeah, you are just a brave one. I cannot say anything more, as in, like, and I mean that so deeply.
Thank you. I
So
appreciate that.
wonderful.
Yeah, no.
I
It's
want to, oh, go on.
No, I was just going to say, like, we've not, neither of us have chosen easy paths, but I think that's what that's what makes it perhaps even more rewarding at the end. And
Exactly. Yeah, because yeah, it will be. And it is. I mean, it
yeah,
is so, it's almost like a swing. It goes two ways, and the swing, it's going like big, back and forth, like it's, yeah,
yeah. I
up.
mean, that's what I said, the roller coaster, but the swing is very much a great, a great example as well of the
Yeah,
process
it's both.
of it.
Yeah, exactly.
But, like, you said, like, it is worth it even now, which I agree,
Mm.
because, even like moments like this where, like, we spent however long, I don't know how long we've
Yeah.
been talking, but, like, talking about the process and kind of being in touch with, like, what that process is about is
Mm.
just as important as the process itself. You need to know what it is you're doing and what you're working towards. Otherwise, you kind of get lost.
Mhm.
Like, oh, I forgot what do I want? What am I working towards again? Spending hours working away. What's the goal?
So often people ask me, so what do you do on a daily basis? Uh, I honestly find that one of the hardest questions they can
Yeah,
ask
yeah,
me,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
because I
yeah.
mean, creation, it's like so much is done, it, of course, also by the doing, but also just by the thinking. And I often go on my walks and stuff, like that's my nourishment, that's my tank fill up
Yeah,
time, you know?
definitely. I know
Yeah.
that's so funny you say that though, because like obviously I have a lot of friends that are very supportive, and then I have a lot like friends that I love, and but I can tell when they ask those kinds of questions, it's not a loaded question, but it's kind of like, so what were you up to this week? Almost as if it's like, have you not been doing anything? What have you been doing? Like, how do you fill your time? And I'm like, if only you knew. Like, if only you were in my head and like could see what's going on up here. Because like yeah, it's just funny. And I try, like, obviously my parents, as I said, are very supportive. And sometimes, even though they're very invested in what I'm up to and everything, there's so much going on
Mm.
that even they're like, so who's that again? Sorry, who are you collaborating with? Is that the so and so guy? And I'm like, no, it's not. It's not. But thanks for trying. Thanks for trying to like remember. But there's so much going on, and
Yeah.
so many different people that I'm trying to work with and I'm working with, that it's hard for me to remember, let alone anyone else, and try and describe it to anyone else.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah. Oh, so great. I want to kind of come back to the words, because I mean, we can absolutely talk. I feel we can talk for hours,
Yeah,
honestly.
can we not? Yeah, let's do another hour, shall we? You've got the two most talkative people like living in the UK right now, sat on a call on Zoom.
It's good. It's very joyful.
Yeah,
Um,
no.
okay, so there is a stream of love supporting my dreams.
Yeah,
That you always know that.
yeah.
In
I mean,
times
yeah,
when we forget, there's
yeah.
always support.
There is always, and that's a very apt one. I mean, even before we had the conversation, that resonated with me. That one.
Mm. And then courage.
Yeah, we talked about the guts and needing the courage to get on with the hard dream that we're trying to achieve. So that's
Yeah.
that's very appropriate as well.
And grace.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah. You said that's very me. I mean, I'm gonna.
And I think too, in what you were well, yeah, you are so gracious. And I mean, in saying too, like when challenges are being presented,
Mhm.
how to deal with them,
Yeah.
you do very graciously, as in coming from that loving space, etc.
Mhm.
Yeah, so and also forgiveness.
Yeah. I feel like we didn't really touch upon that much, but I feel like that could perhaps like be applied in just the sense of like, you know what we talked about like learning things about the industry, and like I know that over the last few months I've made the wrong decision.
Hmm.
So it's maybe about like forgiving yourself for making that decision and just being like, right, well, it's done now, get on with it, move on. Don't focus on it.
Yeah.
Perhaps that could kind of relate to what I if it's relating to me, perhaps over like relating to that and what's happened over the last few months. Perhaps,
Yeah, that's
you
nice.
know.
And I think in generally in creation there is so much forgiveness to oneself, in a sense of, if we place too much value constantly on everything we do. Today I was hearing in a different podcast, this person was saying, I'm a perfectionist, therefore I could really we're not going into that rabbit hole. Then we are here for another hour. No, but I mean, like, I'm a perfectionist, which can paralyze oneself, which I so agree with. And then he just says, like, just do one little thing. And I'm like, yes. And it's about forgiving, because today I needed to record like this tiny little video clip. This person was like, oh yes, set it up, da da da. I was like, yeah, fine. I was like, yeah, I do this all the time, no problem at all. And then I was doing this video and I was like laughing at myself because I was not happy with myself doing it. I thought, oh God. and then I ask myself, is it good enough?
Yeah,
Is it okay?
yeah.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, no, you're so right. And I think like being that like is another form of forgiveness, just like accepting. It's kind of forgiveness and acceptance, isn't it? Because it's like
Mm,
accepting of just if in that circumstance, like I'm a perfectionist, clearly you're a perfectionist. I think a lot of creatives are, but it's like if you're a perfectionist to such an extent, you're never going to get anything done.
yeah, no.
You're never going to get any content out. You're never going to, be happy with anything. And then you're just regressing. And it's like, well, what's the point?
Totally.
So I think, yeah, forgiveness and acceptance and really trying to push that perfectionist down,
Or
like,
be friends with it almost, because it is a very helpful friend. But I mean,
yeah,
at the flip side of perfectionism, which is also very much in this podcast, like I just laugh if things kind of, the
don't go
other day
right.
I was in my solo one in the solo episodes, all of a sudden I forgot something,
Yeah,
or I wanted to do my cards or whatever. I was laughing at myself. I mean, I could have so easily stopped the
stop.
whole thing and like,
Yeah,
no, 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 Tessa, it's okay, because
yeah.
in the end, we are all human beings. We're not robots.
I know you're so right, and like that's like one thing I'll just say very quickly, and I won't like make it last long, but applying that not perfection and the beauty in the mistakes to
Mhm,
like vocals and singing,
mhm,
and
mm,
you'll know this, like if something's perfect, it might not be emotional, and it
right,
might not. If it's perfect, it might be no perfect, but you can't feel anything from that.
that's
You
right.
know, like I think it was, and this is just the last thing I'll say.
Yeah.
There's a Christina Aguilera song. Um, I think it's called Hurt, or it's one of her kind of earlier things from maybe like 7 to 10 years ago. And I remember watching an interview about her, and she was like, "I'm such a perfectionist," and blah blah blah, and like I really wanted to do it, like so many takes for this song. And in the end, the guy that was producing her song was like, "Look, right, that's it. We're going to do one take. I don't care if your voice cracks, if you go sharp, if you're flat. I want to hear the emotion." And
Mhm.
they ended up using that take, and it was like a one take song. And that's actually something that one of my friends is trying to do in our album. He's like, "We're going to do this as a one take song," and I'm like, "Are you kidding? I don't get to do 60 takes for a lead vocal. Is that a joke?" And he's like, "No, because it needs to be emotional and in the moment." And I'm like, huh.
Mhm. But
But
it's
it,
true
but
though.
it's true because and at the end of the day, that's the point. It's that like you can hear the emotion, and you can hear it in that song that I was talking about, because you can tell
Yeah.
that it's like you can hear her voice breaking. She's almost
Mm.
crying, and it's like, wow, it gives you goosebumps, and you wouldn't have that if she was just singing it note perfect.
And being more from a theater background,
Yeah,
when I've been recording little bits and bobs, always the guy where I work with, he's always in awe, thinking, "How did you do that in one
yeah,
take?" Because
yeah,
I'm, but I've been creating this sort of lying detector, but I have like this authenticity detector, because I'm
yeah,
just
yeah,
bored to shit. I'm sorry, but I'm like
yeah,
tuning out. I'm not there if it's not
yeah.
real, you know?
Yeah.
I'm
No,
out.
and I think no, but you're right, because that's something that a lot of people pick up on with
Mm,
performance as well. Like, you've just said you can pick up on it. Like if someone's watching your video and it's the one where you mess up and you're laughing, people are like laughing with you. And
of
they're like,
course.
"Oh gosh, you messed up. That's
Yeah,
cute."
yeah.
And I think, yeah, that's like people can like detect when you're in the moment and you're like feeling it, as opposed to like, this is how I practiced it and this is what I'm doing, and then
Totally.
gonna regurgitate how I know how to sing it or perform
Yeah.
it, or do the scene without putting any feel into it.
Mm,
It's a hard thing to do. It's a hard thing to do for sure. But
yeah.
we're yeah.
Oh, you're such a darling. So tell me, what is one thing or 10 things? What are you taking away from this little moment in time with together?
I think like we've touched on it a lot. It's just like believing
Mm,
and believing in like what you want and visualizing it,
mhm, mhm.
and just if you believe in it enough, and you said it, it might be a kind of cliche, and it's like anything's possible, but like I do, if you're believing in it enough, and you can make other people believe it too, then it can happen genuinely.
Mm, yeah.
I've seen that in small things over the last few months, not necessarily the end goal, but like with small projects. And if you put enough time and energy into something that you're passionate about and that you believe in, it can't not, you know do well, and you can't
Mhm,
not be proud of it.
mhm, mhm. Yeah. That's beautiful. And what I'm taking away, what I've been really feeling and seeing in you so often, also in my own journey, when I have a dream, it's quite far out,
Mhm.
as in it's a dream, it's not here, but
Mm.
you speak with such a groundedness and such a, even though it might be a dream, at the same time you are doing it,
Yeah,
and you are just yeah, there is a groundedness about it, like this is it, and I just love seeing that in you, so that is very much something I'm taking on. uh
amazing. Good.
yeah. So
Yeah.
tell everyone before we say goodbye, where can they find you? Yeah.
Yeah, no problem. So I basically I like to use my full name because it's
Yeah.
the easiest way to find me online. But if you want to listen to my music, all the normal kind of streaming platforms, so Spotify, Apple Music, Deezer, anything that you use, if you literally just type in Amber Prothero, you'll find my songs. I've got a new song coming out on the 11th of December, which is a week on
Mm.
Friday,
Mhm, mhm,
which is the third song from the upcoming EP that I mentioned to you, Tessa, just
mhm.
now. And then on YouTube and everything. So I'm on all socials, and on obviously Spotify and everything like that. So
Yeah, so give Amber a link, like, share, a comment,
yeah, anything like
message,
that.
everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Connect, yeah, connect with me online. Like I love doing that. Like following random people and being like, oh my god, I love your comment.
Yes,
Or
totally, totally.
yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Amber, for being here with me, and I truly adored it so, so much.
Thank you, Tessa. I absolutely loved it, and it was my first podcast. I feel like we had a great time, which is the most.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you
You
so much.
are a real pro.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.